Uh, Just Sonia?
Just Sonia.
Okay, so we're not going to get a update on COVID, I guess.
No.
All right, all right. We have a quorum sitting right here. That's with Sonia. That's great. Has everyone seen the agenda? Is there any adjustments we need to make? We're good. Okay, we have no citizens for citizens comments, so we'll pass that. Next is the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? I did.
I did.
Can we have any discussion on the minutes first? We have a motion.
To accept.
Second? Somebody? Anybody?
Second. Pat did.
Okay. All in favor?
All right. Bob, are you abstaining?
And is,
And Sonia, are you approving the minutes? Yep, I see. that.
yes,
Perfect.
okay, hand up. Perfect. All right, and thank you for doing that. That's a ton of work to get that done, so
No problem.
appreciate it very much. Chair report, I don't have a whole lot. We did have our food pantry today. We had 141 families that came for food, which is actually pretty typical. That's kind of the number we're seeing now. As most of you know, last month I mentioned that we were going to do a petition during the November election, which we did do, and we got something like 350 plus or minus signatures, a lot more than we needed. And I have handed that petition into the town for getting it on to the next election, or if we have a special.
What does it specifically?
It specifically says, I don't know the wording, but generally the town agrees to support the food pantry with a payment of $18,000 a year, $1,500 a month.
With a number. Good.
Yeah, with a number. And oh, I should mention one thing. There was a couple of folks who wanted to understand how the food pantry determines who qualifies for food, because there was a discussion of, can anybody come and get food? And the answer is no. You actually qualify in providing not an affidavit, but you sign a document that indicates that you're living under poverty. And so you actually, the folks that we help all really need the help. So there's nobody coming and grabbing food and selling it or trying to make a profit off of it or anything like that. The people that get food are people who need the food. They're what we refer to as food insecure.
One of the, just because every now and then I think about process, this would be a very logical part of an economic development conversation, because it means Waldoboro has safety nets and support, and it would be a good place to bring your business. Just to link it to our.
It's true. It's true. And obviously we're just one small aspect of what the town can offer folks in need. There's all kinds of other, there's a, town navigator, and there's, there's all kinds of help available. Help for, in fact, when we were doing our petition, right next to us, and oh boy, I wish I could remember the name, but anyways, they're the group that helps people with heating costs. So if they can't afford to heat their homes, they provide subsidies for heating.
It's probably LIHEAP,
What was it?
LIHEAP, LIHEAP.
It may have been.
It's
just
state
can't-
funded, I think.
Yeah.
It sounds right, but they were terrific. And so there's all kinds of organizations like that in the town that reach out to folks in need.
I just filled my oil tank and it was like $5 a gallon for oil.
Yeah, we did ours. Yeah, it was up there.
Kerosene's like $6.50 right now. Doesn't matter.
I
Yeah.
love my heat pumps. I kiss them goodnight.
And that's all I had. John's not here, so we,
So actually, Jan, I did want to say something on John. John has actually just sold his house in Waldoboro, so he's having to step down from the EDC.
well, that would explain that. All right. Oh, that's too bad.
Is he moving out of the area?
Yes, he's moving out of the area, but he's still going to be with Maine Health.
Okay.
Too bad. All right. And Ruben, that takes us to the broadband update.
So for this part of the meeting, I don't have anything to talk about before survey. All the stuff I have to talk about, will come later in the new business.
Okay, and so survey results.
Okay, so survey results. I got 8 surveys back about before the meeting, and then Jan, you handed me about 3 more, right? So
Yep.
11 surveys out of 200 that were sent out.
Were sent out, yeah.
These were sent out with the tax bills?
No, they were distributed during the election because the tax bills were sent out in like late October, and we were getting to that deadline of do we give it out to everyone in the tax bill or do we just hand it out during the election day? And
Oh, so is it just a shorter,
What
run
is
of-
it I would have filled out months ago?
this survey that we all kind of talked about during the summer, where it's just going over what you filled out.
And that's very unlike me, but I filled one out. I remember saying, oh boy, what, why? There was something I filled out on this subject. I remember trying to figure out how much I spent for internet, not knowing how much of it was cable.
Was
Might have been
perhaps the video?
Practice run? Was that a practice run?
It might have been a practice run one.
Did we all-
Well, you wasted that one on me. Okay.
In terms of, so I have 11 results,
But it's 11 people who cared enough to respond.
and they all said,
So
yeah,
that's-
get the planning.
that's saying
grant," pretty
something.
much. And
Was there a consensus?
yeah, it was all, they all said, get the planning grant. We want the 100.
Okay. That was a given.
Yeah, and everyone else, I mean, it varies on prices at least. Obviously, if they had consolidated, they were paying less than $50 a month and were only using it for email at the time, but wanted more. People who are paying way more are using it for business and still wanted some improvements. And it doesn't matter on the provider. We have Starlink, we have Spectrum, we have Tidewater, we have Consolidated, different providers, and everyone would like to see some improvement.
I will say that, so I handed them out and I was doing the petition for the food pantry at the same time. And generally, so this is good to note for next time.
Mhm.
Generally, people who have voted and are leaving are in a hurry. And they don't want to stand around and talk about a survey or, and even getting them to sign the petition for the pantry
Mhm.
was, you had to come back.
Yeah.
Just take a minute and, I think in hindsight,
Before they go in with their board and you're like,
in hindsight, it probably wasn't the best way to distribute.
Are you
survey.
allowed to communicate with them before they go
No.
in?
No, we
No.
get them on the way out.
That's what I said, you
Oh,
can't.
you
Oh, you're
cannot.
not allowed
You
to.
are not allowed.
In some states, you can't give them water, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
because they're worried about somebody.
states
they're worried,
Influencing.
yeah,
Really?
worried about influencing.
Wow, that's,
I don't think the fact that it's a
It's a little
food pantry or
drastic.
the survey,
yeah,
it's the fact that somebody, a political party might
Yeah.
want to
sure.
set up a table.
Right.
and-
That's very surprising.
Do we want to have another bite at the apple on this?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, I guess.
I mean, do you want to, it could be a more, I'm going to say digital distribution and advertisement in the newspaper so that we're not waiting until the next big election or tax bill being
is it-
sent out.
Is it is the survey, is the most we're gonna get from this consensus that we should try and get the grant? Because I bet
Pretty
you're
much.
gonna be against getting a grant.
Yeah, can you set like a minimum of like, say 50? And then if that 50 comes back as a consensus,
Or
then-
do you even have to have a consensus to apply?
yeah,
No, I
Well, we
mean,
have a consensus of the respondents that we got.
I was going to say, if I think I'm fine with just what this survey is and then
I would,
this
I
discussion.
would pass on any more bites at the apple.
I guess the question is there any other information we were looking to gain that we haven't been able to from that survey?
I think the only other item we were looking at was what people most commonly use the internet access for. And some people did the rank, some people just checked everything, but didn't indicate what was the most common
Yeah.
use, which is the only inconsistent item. But
I have one reason for, I could come up with a lot of reasons. If I'm going to give you one reason to just go for the planning grant, it's this. Getting people service at 100 by 100 means they're going to be using the internet in a way they haven't planned for or don't fully understand. And that's your cloud services. That's Office 365. That's your iPhone automatically backing up. That's sending whatever your stuff is back out to the web. They don't realize there's even a limit to how fast that goes. They probably don't realize necessarily how long it takes.
Is that also, basically, that's all your television you want to ever see?
No, that's what you're sending out. So TV and stuff, that's coming in.
Right, okay, right.
So at 100 megs, you're probably okay there. But being able to send out at 100 meg versus most people are limited to about 10. And you can go faster than that, but most people don't even know that they can do that.
I guess I'm a perfect surrogate for dumb here.
What do you do for your accounting software? You use QuickBooks?
QuickBooks in the cloud.
There it is.
Yeah, at work. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet your database when it's backing up takes 15 or 20 minutes sometimes to do a full run versus several seconds on a 100 meg upload.
Yeah, I'm for the grant, but I'm just saying that.
Well, no, that's, I guess my point is though, and there's no reason you should, you're not going to know that. So that benefit that's coming, people don't know it's coming. It's one of those sort of
I'm
gradual.
agreeing with you
yeah.
because it's gonna get better, and it used to be you plugged it in and heard a funny noise from your phone.
Oh, I remember.
Come a long
I'm
way.
not that young.
So, um,
And see Sonia's typing in the chat there. I like the idea of an outline survey with added the paper, asking what they use it for.
We can
How
still
long
gather
is it?
that data, but I don't think it needs to preclude us from pursuing a planning grant.
Right.
It's not going to cost us any money.
When you apply for the grant, do you have to characterize exactly how you're gonna use it? And
Usually, well, for the planning grant, at least with Island Institute, that is outlining trying to do some fiber expansion.
Island Institute's behind it?
I think, yeah, Ruben, we
Yeah.
Yeah,
we talked with them
the Allen
ages ago.
Institute's the group we've been talking with. This isn't their first rodeo on this stuff.
No.
And we've got, I don't know where to rank them, but either Consolidated or I would expect LCI because they've invested so much in the area already. It would be with one of those guys.
And LCI is apparently even upgrading what they offer now to either 100 symmetrical or gigabyte, depending on the spot. I actually have 100 symmetrical now.
LCI is slowing down for nobody, and they're looking at areas where there'll be other emails out to you, and you'll probably see something,
Yeah.
Bob. They're taking a second look at what they've already spent here and what they can do in other areas. And I'll cover the rest when I go to the new business stuff. But there's some exciting opportunities. But that planning grant's going to be key to whatever we get up to with whoever we do it with.
How much money is the grant for?
What is it, 15K?
I think we could go up to 15, but I think we do have to provide a bit of a match, which can be the TIF funds.
Which is about that number for a properly done engineering study. It's about right.
do you need us to make a motion?
No, I mean, if this is just getting a grant application together, I'm just putting together a
It would
grant
be nice to
application.
have the support of the EDC if we're going to do it.
And then when you go to the
Yeah,
select board,
yeah.
I would so move. Do the petition.
Hold on. There's Sonia has something up in the chat. Island Institute, are they?
Would it
Using
be
federal
easier if I
grant
just
money.
spoke?
Oh yeah, thank you, Sonia.
Okay, yep. Now, you were saying where you're getting the planning grant, is that federal grant money?
No, I don't think
I
Island
think the
Institute.
Island Institute itself is the source.
Yeah,
Okay,
not federal.
it may
Okay.
be federal's upstream, right? It's
Right.
possible.
When we eventually get to like infrastructure, that could be federal. But in terms of planning, it's more local sources.
Yeah, when you come to building it, there's separate federal and state money, and there's other relationships. This is a relationship with the Island Institute. They're a third party that doesn't care who looks at building the infrastructure, just what physically needs to happen. Those other things come in later stages.
Do they set the scope of work?
I mean, the scope would be getting fiber to every home in the town.
That's the scope.
That's the scope.
Even though
Okay.
we're not an island.
Correct. I mean, islands in their name, and they do a lot of great work out at the
Yeah. Oh, no,
islands,
we
but
work with
they're
them a lot.
it's any rural community, which is basically Maine.
Working waterfront
Yep.
especially.
So, oh, and I know you wanted to save this for later in the meeting, but you did do that. You did send us a map, which actually indicated which homes currently have fiber.
What I'm going to warn you on in that map is that map by default shows everyone with internet, and that is and isn't true. That map is dynamic. It comes with a filter. Things like satellite services don't count against the wireline services. There are video links that can show you how to drive that tool. And once you drill down and click or unclick the right boxes, you get a picture that's closer to accurate than you would expect. Now, this study that we would do, this engineering study, would be, they'd have people looking at the poles and seeing what goes to every single house. So they'd probably start with that FCC map, but it's not being taken as gospel. We're going to take the data we get and dump that back in and say, hey, this address doesn't really exist, or hey, this home can't really get this service at this speed. So while that map, and I started this with an email I sent, I was a little disheartened because I thought it said, hey, there's no problem. That's not really what it says. It's a pretty complex tool, but there is a real honest thing there. There is an ability to make that tool make sense. And it's a good starting point. But that's the reason we want that grant, is to get granular per
That's what I was
address
gonna ask you. What's,
accurate data.
what are we getting out of the grant that we don't have now, basically?
Well, want to plan on what needs to go where for infrastructure on poles, because you're not just stapling fiber to a pole. There's network switches, there's muxing and demuxing, which is a whole neat thing I just learned about, where you can put 50 kinds of light down one piece of glass and split it back out, which I didn't know was possible, but you can. So that engineering study takes network engineers and people that work at ISPs, and they, instead of doing what we do, which is say, hey, wouldn't it be great to get broadband somewhere? It's a nuts and bolts. How do we do this, and what is the cost? And who already has it, who doesn't, things like that.
And would it give us, is the finished product something we could take to a provider and say, can you?
So you would work with a provider. So let's say we sign this up with LCI and we engage, or we sign up with Allen Institute and engage LCI. LCI is going to own that data. So you can't take LCI's engineering report and say, hey, Fidium, use this. So once you start with that planning grant, you sort of need to look around, you need to choose a partner and move forward.
Just to be argumentative, why wouldn't we choose Fidium instead of LCI?
So that's a whole different conversation. If I had to pick a reason right now, it's because LCI has more infrastructure already in the area. Fidium would have to upgrade connections to their CO in Waldoboro and then extend out from it. LCI would be extending the pretty big chunks of network that are already here. That being said, there's no reason tonight we're saying we're going with that vendor. The first thing we need to do is reach out to the Allen Institute and get started.
Right. Right now, whether we're
Right.
going to pick Fidium, or sorry if I'm cutting you off.
No,
whether,
please do.
Whether we pick Fidium or LCI or Spectrum or some dark horse candidate, that's all after we submit a planning grant and then are trying to do an RFP to find a partner for this whole project.
Okay, so I misunderstood. So the grants, the grant is for a standalone study that doesn't involve a provider at this point.
Well, once you do the work, you'd be choosing a provider. So
Right.
there's a conversation that needs to happen here, because it's happened. These things I've seen happen different ways. The first thing we need to do is engage Allen Institute. There's probably going to be a conversation that comes back to this group and that goes to the select board as we figure those pieces out. We need to start having that conversation. The examples I found that have started and been finished are you get your grant, but then you need to pick an ISP to work with to do that plan.
Do they give estimates, or we just pick one and go with it? I mean, is there a
Right.
project scope?
Well,
or-
the RFP process would be, we put something out to the providers in the area saying, this is what we're doing. This
Okay.
is our project scope.
Then
who
everybody
can-
comes back with a number and.
People will come back for number and what their experience is and whatever
Mhm.
relevant information. And then we would decide who would be a good candidate.
Okay.
So Bob's suggestion to have it be a motion that we agree to is probably a good one.
To pursue a planning grant.
Yeah. So that I would remake that motion.
I'll second it.
So Joe, so.
Don't ask me to say what the motion is.
So just so I understand, George, you're making a motion that we proceed with the planning grant and the required, whatever required payment, whatever
Our share of,
our share of, what is it, 50%?
I would suggest just say pursuing the, just
Yeah.
Just
pursue the planning grant.
and then
And
we'll
then-
follow up and get the details.
And then when I have to get actual numbers, then I come back to you guys. Then you can make a motion / recommendation to the select.
But it's not unreasonable as a motion maker to have heard you say that we have TIF money to match it with.
Right.
Okay.
All right, and you second it?
Yep.
So discussion? All in favor?
So I saw Bobby
I'm
using
abstaining.
and Sonia.
What do you think?
I
Because
I get to vote on it at the board level, so it's not fair to have two bites of the same apple.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't understand still enough about TIF. I just, I'm just listening in. So yeah. If you want to go ahead with that, that's okay. All right.
Yeah, the TIF's really not part of the discussion yet.
Yeah.
So we'll still have a kick at
Yeah.
that can.
Yeah,
Sonia.
yeah. No, I don't fully understand some of the stuff. So that's my hesitancy. But that's okay. If you're looking into pursuing something, you're not doing it. So I can have time to find out more information on it.
We're not
That's okay.
allocating.
I can email and ask those questions so we don't take up time in the meeting.
Well, and we have a TIF discussion later on, so I can quickly give the
Okay.
overview of TIF funds again. Because I don't
Okay.
think you were at the last meeting where I did go
Nope.
over this. All right,
Nope.
so
Sorry about that. I
no,
missed-
that's fine. So I'll go over that when we get to the TIF discussion. All right, so. Okay. That's all I have for the survey item. And moving on, or did you want to continue with?
Is that it for your update?
That's all I got for now.
Okay. I just want to go back. We're okay so John, I know we've already covered this, but John's been giving us updates on COVID.
Mhm.
And so do we want to try to see if we can still get updates somehow? Or do we just want to move on from that? It was kind of a convenience because he was on the committee.
Right.
That is it something that his organization still puts out that he was just sharing with us on the side, or is it something that we could get access to?
He
like
was
everyone
kind of,
does?
what I gathered is that he was looking internally at his data and giving us a report out. I don't think it was a published document that he was reading. That was my sense.
If I was on their board, I'd say they should do that. But I'm not on their board.
I can just ask John if he doesn't mind.
If there's some report that they routinely do for the public,
If we could just do an update, it would be good.
it's important to everything, yeah.
All right.
John will have the right contacts for that
Okay,
stuff.
I didn't want to just leave that hanging, so. And that takes us to town updates.
All right.
Max.
Reports from-
First thing
So-
was planning board items.
Yeah, so the planning board is not going to meet this month just because there's no applications. And next month is when we'll continue doing our evaluation of the land use ordinance and possibly a single family residential home in a resource protection area, which are all old business items. The election results. I don't have to go over state or federal election items, I hope.
No,
Everything on the town warrant at least passed. This included some funds from the sale of the Friendship Street School, which went to new signs for Welcome to Waldeboro, a match fund to help with the replacement of the Elm Street culvert, an engineering study to cap the Sylvania site. Oh, and the town forest. Some money's going towards treating the town forest on the invasive beetles that are there.
Hmm.
I think that was
John,
all.
Paul and Ringo.
Yep.
Quick question.
And there was no tip items on there.
We had some cones and some excavators. We were fixing the curbs to make them handicapped better downtown.
That might be, I think that's DOT.
Oh, well, that was my question. Was that something that the town paid for or the state, or
I don't.
they seem to have lowered curbs?
Yeah, no, they have, but the question I have is, they came and talked to us about a plan for that intersection.
Yep.
And ways of calming traffic.
Yep.
Then they went ahead and did all this work.
Yeah.
Which seems to me to be duplicative of a grander, more effective scheme. And I have no idea how it got started or where that money came from, or why they even did it.
And it's not necessary, I mean, they essentially just put walks down
They did.
and then they put these signs up at every corner now, which
I have
aren't the most
signs.
attractive signs, but
Well, so it's, I'm not the only one who's like, what this is. Yeah.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
I'll have to go down and check that out later.
Well, if you're in a wheelchair, that would be great.
So what is the plan after the fact that they're doing as far as slowing down traffic at that intersection?
Well, all they've really done is made crossing the street a little more safer, I think, I would guess.
So that's part of slowing the traffic down or making it a
No.
safer.
So about a year or so ago, the DOT came in and they were talking about, well, they were talking about a program that they were kind of starting called the Village Partnership, which is like what they did down in Wiscasset, where they saw what they thought were some hazardous items and tried to address that so it's a safer area and it looks a lot more like a village. So like with Wiscasset, they took out the on-street parking, turned those into wider sidewalks,
Yep.
added some crosswalks and all that stuff. And that's what they would be doing here in town.
Do we have
Not
that kind of room?
not exactly having like wider sidewalks or anything, but traffic calming measures like
They
not
were
a
gonna
speed-
Put in speed bumps and maybe bump out the corners. So you.
Just in that intersection?
Yeah, so you
Could they do
narrow
it
the
up the
street a
hill
little bit.
bit too?
And then to improve
I mean-
visibility, there were
Around
things
my
to
house would be
improve.
good.
So you
Oh my
could-
God,
you
it's
could,
terrible.
you could go up further with a bump out
Yeah,
and have better visuals of what's coming and going.
yeah.
That was the concept. And now they've gone ahead and put in these wheelchair ramps, I guess I call them, which is fine.
Sure.
When they do the
Without the
bump
bump-
out,
without
it's
the
all
bump
gonna
out.
Yeah,
disappear.
yeah.
Well, it does make it, you don't have to step off a curb to step in front of a car now.
So
That's
you
true.
could just roll right in.
You can
front.
roll right
Yeah.
into it.
And the cars do go through that intersection.
That is more efficient.
Oh, I mean, people go up that street like it's going out of style.
Yeah.
it's-
50 miles an hour. I'm like, what is
Yeah.
going?
Yeah, it's not.
I
good.
called the state at one point about putting maybe speed bumps every 500 yards or something, just to like slow it down a little bit. And they're like, yeah, we can't do that. That's not.
Well, because what happens is that section of Maine is a bypass, so people from Friendship use that section of Maine to get back out to Route 1.
I understand, but if
So it's,
if we
Right.
made it a little less easily traveled, they might just shoot straight
I-
across
I
and go
totally
right out to
agree.
Route 1.
I totally agree.
And I think that would kind of calm down that village area and make it a little bit more walkable,
Right.
make it a little more accessible. People might be more interested in being there. But
So Max, where are we with the village partnership? Is there any progress being made on that?
So we just have to apply for it and actually get an application put together
So
on
we
it.
haven't applied for it yet?
It's been discussed, but part of it is we have to provide a match for it because
Right.
Waldeboro would have to do a 50% match.
Right. But the only way we're gonna get that on the ballot is to put in the application and let people know we're doing it.
Yes. And that's what I can do.
That's not a motion from this group. I don't
No,
no,
because
no.
it just has to be done.
Discussion.
Yeah.
But so what would that ask for, Bob?
Say again.
What would, so if we went down that road and Max did it's not a petition, I guess.
It's a grant.
It's a grant application for what? What are we asking?
Well, and that's the other thing. The village partnership is either a spot item where it's just taking one little location like the intersection, or are we talking like a bigger, grander scheme like all of Main Street
Yeah.
from Route 1 to Route 1?
Yeah,
We've just had no discussion about it since that initial meeting with DOT. There
Because
have been no further discussions.
a lot was going on at the time too.
now, is there a variety of things that can be done that are in that? Is there like a menu of things that you can choose from in order to make that?
Yeah, the town can pretty much just tailor it to what would make it more presentable
Yeah.
and there are some examples on DOT's website.
Mhm.
I think Hollowell was another town that they've worked with to get something done.
But you can be, what's the word I'm looking for? You can be
I mean, they would,
creative.
well, we can be creative. It's just they would hope that there's sense to it. Like,
Right, yeah, absolutely.
like if we just say at the intersection, oh, we want to have all these ways for bikes to cross the street,
Yeah.
but there's no bike lanes outside of that intersection,
Right,
then
no,
what's the point?
Yeah, no, I hope they wouldn't be like, what are you guys talking about?
But yeah, we can be creative.
I mean, as far as just getting the biggest bang for your buck kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
and that intersection doesn't qualify for lights. There's not enough traffic.
used to be lights there. I
Wasn't
think
there something about the traffic coming downhill wouldn't be able to stop soon
Yeah.
enough or
Yeah.
something?
I can see that being a problem, running
Yeah.
right through that
Or
light.
going up if it's icy.
Yeah,
Yeah, the lights were kind of discussed and sort of pushed aside in favor of something a little less intrusive.
mhm. I think just slowing the traffic down right there, because people aren't blasting right through. It's coming up or down the hill. I think people just really fast.
It
And
is
it's
a bad
visibility
intersection.
as well, when you're pulling out and crossing to Jefferson.
Yeah. Oh, coming down, you can barely see anything until it's right on
Right.
top of you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And there's other communities I've driven through though, like when you're coming from Moody's, you're coming down the hill. You don't even know you're coming up on an intersection
Right.
unless you're familiar with it. And to have something 300, 600 feet back that's saying approaching a stop,
Mhm.
something that's flashing at night,
Mm.
something that lets you know you're approaching that and just the fact that the post office and everything's right there.
We have a yellow flashing, like maybe it's yellow and red by the corner where McGreevy's corner there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Old one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But funny, I was actually just talking with John Daigle today about that, and it's still a mess sometimes because people are just used to it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You also have a telephone pole that's broken and half stuck in the ground there,
Hmm.
as it has been for 10 years. He really, anyway, that's another time.
Nobody just goes down with the chainsaw. and-
But it's got wires.
Oh,
connected.
I guess that's a problem.
All right, so is this a discussion for another?
Probably it would just be talking about village partnership with DOT because that's what it sounds like this is.
All right.
Other election results were just non-binding results for the Sylvania use and the Hofstas House. Just a quick summary, and I can give out the other summary documents to everyone later. It boiled down to, for the Sylvania site, a lot of favor towards recreation and outdoor sports, not so much favoritism towards commercial uses or at least leasing out the site. And then for the Hofstas House, more people were in favor of just selling the house at least, and possibly even looking into demolition.
Were solar panels on the old foundation part of that discussion? The first part?
solar panels were not popular.
Yep.
Really?
There were,
No,
we gave
it
two,
surprised
we
me
gave,
too.
we
Yeah,
gave,
that's,
we gave two options. There was solar owned by the town and solar leased to a third party. And let's see, solar owned by the town had 765 people in favor of it out of 2,500 people, and leasing to a third party had 471 people in favor. But the third party option had the second highest disapproval in town, with about half as many people saying they were against that
I
idea.
wonder what the disapproval's about though. As far as even the town owned, it seemed, it seems like a no brainer. I mean, it seems like you'd have both. You could have both, as far as a recreation area and solar panels there.
Is it the appearance of solar panels or the?
I think it is, if I'm being honest.
I hear a lot of narrative being pushed about people, and anytime I've heard it, someone's clearly been told what they think. I mean, I'm sure you've all heard that tone from someone where they say, "I can't believe how these things look." But
Well, no, I
and
mean,
some of this is just perception because I have a bunch of panels, so therefore, absolutely, I love it. But the places I've heard that leaves me with other questions into how it's being interpreted and what their information source was.
I mean, I think visual is a big key. Like for the two commercial ones I've had, the people who come out, it always naturally comes up. People think their property values are going to go down because they live right next to a big solar farm. Ruben, I think you're one of the exceptions on this, with you actually having solar on your property there. But
I mean, I'm the one that wanted to put it there too. So
I mean, couldn't you just put like arborvitae's along the road and you'd never see it? I mean, it seems like a simple
if you
fix.
put up some screening and buffering, but then you're also just closing off the property to everyone.
Well, I mean, just as far as visual and that, yeah, I mean, I guess it's
But-
possible to
and-
make everybody.
But then
happy.
the other part is, I mean, I'm even a pro solar guy, and I think they look very nice, especially if you're looking at the panel. But when someone said, "Oh, but it's not like you're going to see the panels; you're going to just see the underside of it," I
That's
was like,
true.
"I don't want to see the underside. No one wants to see the
Yeah, it's like
underside."
the opposite of where the
yeah, that's
road
way
is,
more
basically.
boring.
Yeah,
Did I understand right that there was,
it's non-binding.
Non-binding, but there was a strong sentiment to using it for recreation.
Yes. Low impact recreation, outdoor sports. and-
Once we seal the
Mhm.
area, can we actually do like sport? Could we do
Yeah.
basketball on it?
Yeah.
Could it be a skating rink?
Mm.
As long as we're
A lot
not
of
digging.
those Things have come up.
So sealing it means pouring a bunch of special concrete.
Bed night or something.
Mm.
That night,
Yeah.
is-
I mean, so the
Yeah.
bad stuff
it's like
can't,
capping a landfill.
Yeah.
keeps the bad stuff down.
Yeah,
We
Good
don't have
stuff.
that vegetation cracking through anymore.
So I don't know what bentonite is. I should, but I don't. Is it a hard material? Is
it's
it-
diatomaceous earth that comes from the
Yeah.
bottom of the ocean. It's like
Yeah.
shell
Shells.
crustaceans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so it's, you could write your name in it if you wanted to.
I suppose.
I think
Or
it
your
hard
name.
packs.
Yeah,
and then
but-
things grow over it.
Yeah, probably before it dries, but yes, you probably could.
Is it hard or soft?
Hard.
It depends hard, yeah.
hardens.
Okay, because diatomaceous earth.
It packs
doesn't-
down really tight.
Yeah, diatomaceous earth is like about as fluffy as it
Fluff,
could
yeah.
possibly get.
All right. Well,
One thing the Sylvania Committee did at its last meeting was vote to recommend that the town proceed with,
Looking into selling the Hoff's house.
Mm.
yeah,
Wasn't it for
Did you
sale
say
a year
selling
or
it?
two ago?
Mm.
Yes. But just where the house is and not the area that gets to the waterfront. And it was on sale, but the Hoff's house and the Sylvania site were donated to the town.
Oh, yeah, because I remember being like real cheap too, but you couldn't do
Yeah.
anything with it. It was like 50,000.
did we determine that we could sell it?
I,
Like the well water, did we study the well water and all that?
it's
On town water and sewer.
What's on town water?
Mhm.
I didn't
Oh,
know. that.
really? Because I think it remember
there?
it saying that you couldn't,
Must be right near the end of
it
it.
could be
Sylvania
anything
actually ran a
residential, right?
line
It could only be a
to the
commercial
house.
project.
So-
When they bought the
yes, that's the
property.
current
Got it.
covenant.
One of
That's
the
the current
agreements was they
covenants
would
and-
supply water.
You'd
So
have
they
to
wouldn't be
convince
out of the
DEP
well.
for amending
That
it.
makes sense.
Right,
But someone who might want to turn it into an office might want to buy it.
yeah,
Or someone who might want to do residential is willing to put in the arm work to
right.
get it done.
I just assumed there must have been a well there, but if it's,
And there's still a
City
big old
water.
tarp over the roof.
That gets blown off every.
Blows off.
Why don't we fix that? Why doesn't the town fix that?
We do fix it.
You're having a problem getting the.
It blows off like
Slate
every,
or-
it blows off like the week
No, no,
after
I
we
mean-
try it.
fix the
Fix the
building.
roof.
I think it might be slate.
Fix the roof.
It is slate.
It is,
Yeah.
The discussion is if there's money put into fixing the roof and then it sells, then the town spent money on something that
And
a
if,
new buyer might, that it's like they want like.
and if we put money into fixing it and then we have to demolish it,
Hi.
then
Yeah.
it's like 80 gray. Sorry, Sonia, you were saying something?
No, I remember that house. I remember reading, it's like, it's usable, but you can't because the water's contaminated.
Yeah,
So if someone says there's city water to it, then they need to change that description. And I think it's a slate roof.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's still
Those-
people that work on slate. We have a
Yeah.
slate roof. We've got a
yeah,
guy
those
that
are extremely valuable.
comes and repairs it.
I think the real problem with that place is that that slate roof has been a little rough for a while and there's a ton of,
It might be beyond.
yeah, the structure itself is in trouble. So just fixing the roof's just gonna add more weight to a already decaying building.
Anyway, what they recommended is put it on the market for 6 months
Mhm.
and then see what happens.
Reasonable.
Well, we got a whole committee taking care of it, so
Here's to that committee.
we're in good hands, I think. All right.
Oh, wow.
Anything
Yes.
else?
Nope. That was the election results and then the Sylvania update.
All right. Well, you're gonna hate me on this, but any updates on the community center or any of that work?
Had to put in, I submitted the letter of intent and that just goes over the broad thing and had to be very broad because no location. So hopefully they don't call me out on it and hopefully they're not watching this recording for some reason.
All right. All right. And so we're no closer to a location. Is that what I'm hearing?
Bob, have you heard anything?
Nothing.
There we go.
Wasn't there a post today on Facebook looking for location? Oh, that was for Head Start. Never mind. A different, different
I
program.
hate to do it. Are we talking about the recreation side of this thing or the medical side? of it?
Yes.
Well, it's kind of,
Well, all right, that's
Yeah,
what I thought.
it's both
Yeah.
because we got the federal grant for $1 million to go towards, at the time, a site that would fit both of those and do the site work for it.
I know a good place.
Me too. All right, so that takes us to old business, TIF district amendments.
So Sonia, just because you asked about it, so a TIF is what captures new value to a parcel. So the town created this TIF back in 2019. And anytime those properties go up in value, we capture that value, shelter it from county taxes, the education subsidy losses, and the municipal revenue sharing losses. And we essentially get to dedicate those tax revenues from the captured value for economic projects.
When you say captured value, all I can think of is rat traps. What you're saying is you identify and keep track of that increased value.
Right.
And the taxes that would have been.
Going to the general fund, go to the economic
Right.
fund.
So,
It's a
but-
line item
Yeah,
essentially.
the capture.
Just the delta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just the change in
Yeah.
taxes.
So the town sees the same amount of money coming in from that property.
It was the verb. I just didn't
Yeah.
like capture. So you're listing, keeping track of, documenting.
So did we have money go into the TIF
Yes.
from this year's tax increases?
Yes.
Individual locations.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
You had a number, Max.
it was about 61,000, which weirdly enough puts us back on track to what our projection was when we first did this back in 2019. And I panicked because for 4 years it wasn't going up. And then because of this reevaluation, we're back to where it actually should have been.
And well, it should have been higher than that, except there was things like Sylvania that went
Yes.
down.
Sylvania, the Hofstas house, the
The
Hannaford property.
Hill building is.
We had a bunch of properties that were in the TIF district that lost value.
Yeah.
So it works both ways.
How did they lose value?
So the Sylvania and Hofstas house were still privately owned.
Oh,
So once it went into town ownership, and
there's no
It was-
value anymore.
there's no
There's
value.
tax.
and then with
That's
the
a
Hanna-
problem.
and then with the Hannaford property, I talked with Daryl about this a bit more. Hannaford's real estate management people apparently came and said, you have us estimated way over than what any other place in Maine at least has you at, as us at. So this is why we're asking that you reduce it, because
Hmm.
we're paying more in Waldeboro than we should be in any other place, pretty much. So
Was that true? To your
they
best
show,
of your
they show the
knowledge?
numbers. They show the numbers.
The one thing they didn't point out is the store in Waldeboro brings in more revenue per square foot than any other store in the
I think
entire.
it's gotta be the
Hannaford chain.
smallest store they have.
Well, they just rake
Twice as
in
big as it
money.
used to
Yeah.
be.
I've been to a
Wow.
smaller one, but I was way out in the sticks.
Did you
Yeah.
say it's twice as big as it used to be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Really?
And they never
Good
stopped
Lord.
operating a single day.
Oh yeah, the whole produce area and the deli and stuff, that's all new to that
Really?
store.
They never closed that place one day
Oh.
and they doubled the size.
Oh,
of
they
it.
added on, they did just, wow.
All new is relative. When did that
So-
happen?
Good for them.
Anyways, just very quickly, Sonia,
LG.
so Sonia, did my explanation help
Yeah.
clear up the TIF explanation, or do you want me to discuss this a bit more outside the meeting?
Maybe outside the meeting, but that does add, it does clarify what I was, because I was just trying to figure out what exactly it was and what it does. And that simple explanation does, it's like, so if there's an increase in property value,
Mhm.
that increase on those businesses in that district.
Yep.
Gets diverted to town use without having to go be divvied up among the school board, the school bill, and the county tax bill? Okay.
Correct. And it has to just go towards a project noted by the state that is acceptable, which is why I've been talking about amending the project list and everything, and why we're talking about broadband, because the state specifies what are allowed projects. So it has to go to economic, things that tie to economic development. It can't just be the town wants to fix up Manktown just because we want to fix up Manktown. It has to be, well, we want to fix up Manktown because it connects to this industrial area that we want to have in town or
Just
something.
to double check what I think is
Okay.
the amount of money that we have to spend is the tax on the increase in value, not the increase in value. Correct?
Yes.
Right.
I just want to be sure that that was
Okay.
there.
And I think based on what Daryl showed me, it was like 66% of, and Bob, I think you also always bring this up, 66% of the taxes go to the school, right?
Right.
So that would have been about $40,000 that would have gone to the school without the TIF.
Well, I
Which-
think the
which
other
we would've
important thing is
had to
that,
do-
oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Finish your thought.
I was just going to say, which we would have had to do because we would have lost subsidies associated with the increase in value as well.
So the other really important thing about the TIF is that you can actually spend that incoming money. Like you could look at it, you could look 10 years out and say the TIF is going to be having this money available every year. So you could actually spend that on a long-term project that goes out 10, 20, 30 years.
Unless it goes down in value.
Well,
I would-
Oh,
wouldn't spend. what
well,
you
American
don't have.
Unagi better be, American Unagi better be here for the next 30 years.
It better be.
So, in terms of the amendments, I actually did get some notes back from Tina Mullins, who runs the program up at the state level. And most, she didn't have any complaints with most of the items on the amendments. She just asked for some clarification for a few of them. And she noted that there were two of them that she doesn't believe will qualify as projects. This is both grant programs that we discussed. One was for art and streetscape and facade improvements, and then other art projects to try and improve tourism in the community. She said those probably wouldn't count because there's something called an art TIF district, I guess, or a TIF art district for a TIF that we'd have to establish. So those would just have to be removed, but she had nothing wrong with the other items, at least for now.
Not a bad score.
And I did include all the other items that people suggested at the last meeting, including the housing workshops aimed at affordable and or workforce housing. Remember, that was a very,
I think a look at that.
yeah, sure.
All right.
But yeah, the next step would just be to finish it up and then have it go to a town meeting.
Great.
Which we can do by June.
Could that be a special town meeting? Given the sense of urgency about it?
That's a discussion I have to have with Julie. And she's not here this week.
The special town meetings cost extra money.
They're cheap. You just sit in a chair and vote.
Well,
But then, the food pantry would like that because then we would,
You mean
We
a
wouldn't have
special
to wait
town
till
meeting, you
June.
don't have printed ballots that are 36 pages long?
no, a special town meeting would just be whatever those topics are. So it would be this amendment.
So it's in a room with people
Yeah,
sitting, talking, like good old
It's an
days.
open town meeting.
It would be this or maybe.
instead of toys, you would have people.
But again, I'd have to clarify that with Julie because certainly if this was done before March, then we can remove Sylvania and Hofstas and Hannaford and then add all that into TIF. But if it's done in the June meeting, then those three properties would be considered for one more tax year. So I'd have to just talk to Julie about that whole thing.
We sure would like to get rid of them.
I think the sooner the better.
Actually, you might as well.
Sooner the better.
Yeah.
It's a big
The
hit.
sooner we
It's a
realize
huge
from it.
hit. So just imagine, we're in the positive with that hit.
Yeah.
Like if we didn't have that hit, we would, it would be significant. All right. Any other old business? So that takes us to new business.
All right, I have a couple lines. These all focus around broadband and some different things that have happened. We already went over FCC maps, but just a quick review on that. The Federal Communications Commission has released a map that's supposed to show what any given address has available for broadband. It is not a perfect map. It is a starting map, and they have challenges and challenge windows open to that map. The first challenge window has nothing to do with what service you can get, what it costs, or how fast it is. The first challenge is, are these addresses accurate and is something missing? So I'm going through that map along with a couple other maps, I'm looking for anything I can identify and
What's this-
submitting those.
What's their source of data? How do they develop that?
So that was sourced from every ISP in the country and individual towns contributing data. So it is, I'm thrilled that it's done. You can find no end of negative opinion about it. It's something we didn't have before, which is ultimately what's going to become a single source of truth.
Right.
So as far as Waldeboro goes, one of the tasks I've sort of taken on is looking at that map just per road and making sure I can do the best to make sure every house is on there. So like, I know there's a new house going up over here by storage. I looked at that. It's already got a dot on it. So that is real. That's what that first challenge window is
And
for.
what that solves is what we hadn't been able to solve before. That is, the ISPs would never share with us
Yep.
where they had their lines
Yep.
and who
Yeah.
was hooked up.
Yeah.
You couldn't get the information. And
So,
now theoretically,
right, along with that,
We'll
I'm
have
signed
access
up
to
too. I have a button that will let me submit a challenge. And they check who you are, they get your social security number and everything. So you have to be careful when you're submitting that data. So I'm not taking that on lightly. There's also a separate challenge that I can submit. It's not really a challenge, but if I know a speed isn't being delivered somewhere, Store Mountain Road, my current pet project, there's 6 houses up there. And everyone is on some form of satellite, except for one house with Starlink. None of them are getting that minimum 25/3.
So a challenge is your opportunity to make a correction to that
Is,
data.
hey ISP or hey FCC,
That's a
this
mistake.
number is not accurate. Here's my supporting documentation.
And so if everybody around everywhere is challenging it, it'll get smarter and smarter. Someday it'll be as smart as Wikipedia.
Right. This is, it's crowdsource. It's, it's going to be garbage in, garbage out, but there are some quality checks to putting that info in. I could
who's
say,
helping you with this? Are you-
right now, I'm just doing it as I have time.
And how do are you able to go out and physically check? I know Store Mountain Road, there's no question about that. But there are other roads like Mayo Road.
So what I'm doing is I'm starting with where I know there are problems. Once I'm done with that, you can go out and drive. This isn't, their first window is something like January 13, but this task never actually ends. They're going to have continuing waves of improving data. I'm starting with the places I know lack connectivity.
Okay.
That's really the edges of town. That's for the amount of time we've put on this, looking at it, thinking about it, that part's relatively easy. And right now I'm just making sure everyone's home is actually represented. That's all they need to know about that. As far as how to use the map, how to drill down and all that, if any of you want to email me, I'll send you links. My email is ruben.m.mahar@gmail.com.
Is there a complication that arises when you get to a town line?
Not really.
So, I mean, the system crosses town lines, but,
It's based on zip code.
okay.
So I'm sure somewhere, I'm never going to call a system, especially a system like this, perfect. So far, it's pretty good. The town lines are a little weird because if you search for Waldoboro, the densest part is inside one defined line. And then if you look at my house, which is right on the edge, it falls outside that boundary, but the map still knows that I'm in Waldoboro.
Okay. All right.
The rest of that is still stuff I'm learning. There are a lot of new knobs and tubes and things you can do to this map. There's a lot of ways to manipulate the data. And I'm still poking at it and learning. Right now, I'm just focused on the pieces that I understand, which for this second are the addresses, and for Store Mountain Road, taking a second for the services that are out there.
How do they keep people from manipulating it to the detriment of other people?
So not just anyone can submit a challenge. They have a unique ID that's assigned to you. And if I start assigning garbage data, they'll reach out to me and say, hey, stop it. And then if I kept doing that, they would stop accepting my data.
So
So-
presumably there's
Your
somebody
house.
behind the scenes.
Oh yeah,
there.
there's other real humans that have to
Carl,
take
who
this
knows
data
that we
and
both
process
have
it in chunks. There's also another way to
access.
do it, which I'll
That's
do
why-
later. You can actually
Oh,
build a
really?
whole
Goes right
spreadsheet
down Main Street.
using a method they recommend, and you can upload thousands of addresses at a time, but they do physically check it. They do check with ISPs, and there is some back and forth there. So you could try to lie to them, but it's a bad idea.
I guess I'm more concerned about the ISPs
Provider
themselves.
There's always that risk. Waldoboro's won a fight with an ISP before, and we'll do it again. But I think every ISP is sort of oversubscribed in what they want to get done and where they want to expand. They could lie about where their other service is, but I don't think that would go super well for them. There's always the case. You could always sit there and think about how badly that could go. I don't see it as an issue yet, at least not this early. We'll keep an eye on it. And that's why I'm checking some of these roads. If I find a place where they keep popping back up, I'll say something.
I mean,
I haven't seen widespread cases of that. They had their chance when they submitted their data to the map. And, HughesNet certainly said, oh, we're perfect everywhere. And I don't think was malicious. I think that was someone saying, I have a week to give you what, and they just Control A send. So that might be an issue at some point. We can worry about it some. I'm going to assume they're acting in good faith and just make sure that my work is very detailed. And if I start seeing stuff that looks wrong, I'll sure as heck be real loud about it. That's all we can really do. Anyone can go and register at the FCC if you want to submit data. If you go to that link in the map, and I can send you guys videos on how to use the map. You can go on there and sign up all the things, so you can also submit challenge data. That's fine.
Do they include private roads in this?
Anything that's on a map.
Okay.
So as long as the road's acknowledged, I haven't gone through everything in Waldorf. I haven't been at this super long. So practically I haven't tested it, but so anything that's on a map, anyone that can get mail should be on this map. If there is no road there, you can submit that data as well. If an address is missing, you can say, hey, here's the address.
There's
Here's
an
all the
awful lot of
information.
roads that Google Earth has, Google GPS knows about
Mhm.
every crooked driveway sometimes.
Yep. But that map's only going to be as good as the people that interact with it.
Hmm.
So that's what we're doing is we're interacting with it and dumping in data. The rest of that, and again, these conversations can go great, but if you guys really want to dive into the FCC map and really put in work, that needs to be its own session because I can keep you here until tomorrow. Gone over that, over that. The next thing I want to talk about briefly is something called the line extension program. Most of the stuff I'm focusing on store. And that's where I got a lot of this information. Any ISP can submit for a line extension grant that has to be matched partially somewhere. So for store in particular, LCI is looking at store using a line extension grant, and they need a matching amount for that, which lays in at about $5,000. I think it was 700 per house. LCI is looking at that and seeing what can be done. I've emailed the folks at Lincoln County to see if there's any money there. Those costs need to come from somewhere. That's a brand new conversation. I don't know how committed we are, but if that road's going to get wired, somehow about $5,000 in matching funds would need to happen to get fiber run up that road. Line extension means that the service stops at your road, and from the corner of your road, it can be wired in and completed. I have sent questions to Charter to check with them to see if they submitted anything for Waldoboro. Technically, an ISP has the option to just pay for the whole thing and run the wire. It's never a guarantee in either direction. But I've also asked Charter for the roads they have that the cable crosses those roads and service doesn't run down yet, if they're working on anything there. I sent that today. So we'll see if there's any answer back there yet. For the areas in Waldoboro that qualify for that, store is the big item on my list. I'll look for anyone else, but that's the one that has some potential that I think might actually happen, or at least is going to get the closest to happening. So that's what we're working on.
Is this line extension grant from the state of Maine, or is this federal?
I would have to double check with Alan. I'm honestly not sure. I think it's Maine because the documentation I'm working off is from the Maine Connectivity Authority.
And it might be ARPA money that went to the state and all that. Because the only reason I ask is because of it'll probably be a broadband definition thing. It has to be 100 symmetrical for that extension to happen.
Whatever gets run down there has to be 100 symmetrical.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I'm
well,
saying.
if it's state, there's other money, and Charter does what they do. There's other changes coming for cable,
Right.
which are the short version is, believe it or not, you can do those speeds over cable with the next upgrade that's coming. So it depends on how they leverage that and when they do their upgrades. And that's a whole long list of what ifs. The reason I asked that question to the cable company is because there's a lot of short roads that there's no fiber near that road. Cable's the closest thing they have. So they go from second best to only option. And my number one goal is I don't care who gets broadband out to a house at least 100 by whatever. Anything that's not satellite or a phone line is what I want to get out there. Our community navigator, do we know if they know about the Maine Affordable Connectivity Program?
Karen Ann has been out for the past week or so. I don't know, and I'd have to talk to her about that.
Anyone here has anyone here heard the term TLDR? Too long didn't read.
Isn't there supposed to be a
TLDR.
semicolon in between that? or
Probably. I don't speak in punctuation. So the Affordable Connectivity Program, if you are a household, 2 people, and you make under, I think it's $42,000, you qualify for $30 credit on your internet that the state pays directly to the ISP. If that's cable internet, that means basic internet is now free. If you have any other service, it means $30 off of that price. We are not a rich town, and I'm gonna guess that a lot of people that need that don't necessarily know. And you don't necessarily have to be poor. You could just be retired. You could have the Lifeline program. There's a lot of ways to get there. But I'm asking that question about the navigator just to make sure that gets communicated better.
What's the name of the program?
Affordable connectivity program.
And
So who
Who
state
applies
is that?
for it?
Yep, but all you have to do, if you want to do the
Individuals have to apply for it?
individuals can apply for it. They can also call their service provider. So if you're a Spectrum customer or if you're an LCI customer, you can call them and say, hey, this is where I'm at. Can you run me through the application process for the Affordable Connectivity Program? At least with Spectrum, they do the whole thing for you. They validate your information, but because you're already a customer, they have your baseline information. They run it all, and then once you're approved starting on your next bill, that just shows up as a credit. You don't have to get a check and mail someone else the difference. It's just something that's done.
Do you know if they have a little brochure or a little one pager?
If you Google the Affordable Connectivity Program, they do. It's right on the web. If you want to give someone physical paper, we probably have to make our own, but they do have a short thing, including a grid. They have a guide to income because as you add children to your family, for example, that number moves. It's 200% of the poverty rate or less.
So one thing we could do is we could print out a little one pager and we could give it to every family that comes to the food pantry.
How many
Every
copies?
single one of those families would qualify,
How many copies do you want?
150.
All right, I'll make those for you. I have a
We'll put
laser
one in
printer
each
that doesn't
bag.
get a lot of
Good
action.
idea.
Fantastic. We'll do that if any, we won't do that for a business, but we'll do that for any organization like this.
Right. Well, you're being agnostic because that would be any service provider.
Right.
That's a good
Um,
idea.
and then
And Karen Ann is a good idea too.
Yes, I agree.
I'll send an email with you two connected after this.
that's
just to-
great. I'll spend any time with them they like. So those are the broad strokes of the sort of new pieces of info I wanted to deliver on broadband.
All right. Any other new business? No. Any discussion on today's meeting? We are adjourned.
Oh, that's
I was about to say.
say
just-
words.
Too late.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the next meeting is gonna be January 3rd. Do we want to have the meeting on January 3rd, or do we wanna,
What is that day?
that would be 2 days
Tues-
right after.
Tuesday?
Yeah, that's
I don't-
Tuesday.
I don't know.
I
That
don't
seems-
drink that.
Yeah, I
much.
don't drink. So
I don't drink.
doesn't
Yeah,
matter
I'll
to
be
me.
by the 3rd. I'll be suitably recovered.
All right. Just wanted to check.
That's fine with me.
Bring in leftovers.
I love everything.
All right.
So there, I